I am a math professor at ACC, and I am also the faculty fellow for the Center for Success. Our presenters today, aside from myself, are Jennifer Brazel, who is a math professor in the math department, and she is also one of the STEM faculty mentors. And then we have Brian Berger, who is chemistry instructor, faculty lead, and the distance education faculty fellow. Okay. Our contact information is there on the screen, and you'll be able to screenshot that again at the end of the presentation if you would like. Okay, let's start off with a little fun icebreaker. In the chat, I would like for you to name two things in a real world application that are equal. In other words, something that is equal out there to us and kind of fun. So mine would be ice cream equals happiness. Tom's going to use a math thing here. Who else? I see typing going on. Sonic equals hero. Oxford, comma, equals pure joy.
Brian, are we talking about Sonic the Hedgehog or Sonic the fast food restaurant?
Of course,
The
Sonic the
hedgehog,
Hedgehog,
not the
guys.
restaurant.
If
Thank
you
you
guys,
for clarification.
I use a Sonic the Hedgehog poster as my. This is where my office is, so of course Sonic the Hedgehog.
Elaney with a new baby says coffee equals survival.
I can attest to that.
Okay. And we have a few more on the way. Jennifer says equation editor equals fast track.
And we'll
And
talk more about that soon.
Angie says reading is equal to relaxing. Awesome. So you guys have an idea of what equations are. Now, for the rest of us who don't know everyone, throw out there in the chat what you teach, just your general subject area, math, English, chemistry.
I'll just put a GIF in there.
Oh, of course.
Overachiever. Tom, beyond the Twilight Zone. You bet.
Yeah, he does.
Chemistry. Awesome,
Oh,
Angie.
awesome. Angie, we need to get in touch.
Welcome, Cecina. We're glad you're here.
Hi, Sybil.
Awesome. Hello.
Okay, we have a wide representation of people in that are not just math folks, and I'm glad some of you found us and came on over to see our presentation today. Now, do any of who of you have equation type writing that is required in your coursework? Go ahead and throw that in the chat.
Awesome. Well, I'm just saying, for all of you that are saying yes, you are in the right place for the presentation
Exactly. Okay. All right. Jen, Brian, whoever's driving, there we go.
All right.
Thank you.
That means.
Why?
Oh, wait, no, Doc, that's still you. Keep going.
Okay, I was wondering if I was stepping on toes already.
Nope.
Okay. Now, let's talk about this and feel free to chime in. Why does equation writing matter in our courses? And that can be either on the teacher side, like for demonstration or curriculum writing, or for the students. Why does it matter for them?
Where do you use it? You're also welcome to unmute. Our voices aren't the only ones that can be heard. It's not designed as a dictatorship, so we'd love to hear unmute as well. Oh, Dr. Kempen just joined us. We know she fits into all this too. So Esther, we're talking about equation writing and where that applies to your classroom, whether it's for you, whether it's for your students, and how it's a benefit. Oh, Brian, I love your response. It helps with accessibility when posting problem keys. Yes, it makes our little green monitor on Blackboard. What's that called, Brian? Align? Something like that?
Ally.
And Tom, you are
Ally, that
very,
one.
Tom, you're very right. Equation writing is very important to banking. Balancing your checkbook is a real world application of equations.
Yep. And we do it a lot in quantitative reasoning for Math 1332. Angie, I love that. Science is a language and equations are part of its vocabulary. So good.
And one of my favorite quotes is, math is the language with which God has written the universe. And so, okay, now, how can equation writing help you? And that can be either you personally or you as a teacher. Okay, good, Brian. We can streamline our time spent writing worksheets, tests, and presentations with Equation Editor. Tom, you're very correct there. The equation writer helps immensely with those financial equations. Let a couple more people answer here, and then we will move on to the next question. Jennifer said that it helps her with online materials because we need to be able to write equations in the proper format. And that is very, very much the case, especially with exponents and subscripts. So, okay, how can equation writing help our students?
I have a follow-up on that particular question also. Do you have your students write equations in non just pen to paper form? You know, so Sina talking earlier about her discussion board. Do you have your students submitting equation type writing technology based in your classroom?
Brian, it could be a big addition to your internet classes.
So Esther, when you're talking about new software, are you talking about that's why you haven't necessarily incorporated like Word and discussion and that kind of stuff? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, so Sina, I love that. Yeah, it would be so nice to be able to have it in an email so that your student email responses were easier and faster. Yeah.
I second that. We need to try to figure that out.
Awesome. Oh, Esther, okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, all right, next slide. Now, what is our takeaway goal for you today? We want to give you a way to streamline your workload. We realize that several of you are already using Equation Editor, but we have compiled a list of shortcuts that will make that task even quicker for you and hopefully reduce the time you spend creating your deliverables. This will also help us to improve your accessibility score with Blackboard Ally. And we want to reduce the time that we spend, like I said, creating our deliverables. And we want to utilize some shortcuts that some of us may not know about in Blackboard Office. And why don't I speak correctly? In Microsoft Office and Blackboard. And to be honest with you, this whole presentation evolved because Jennifer was faster typing equations than I was because she knew the shortcuts. So that is where the evolution of this presentation came from. So now I will turn it over to our first presenter, Jennifer Brazel.
All right, guys. So I want to start by just saying, welcome. Thank you for joining in. If you were in my earlier session, I talked with Brett some about making our learning materials and our learning environment accessible for our students, not just those with disabilities, but across the board. And so whether you teach a face-to-face or an online class or a hybrid, frankly, this is something in your future, right? Allowing our materials to be more than just the traditional, let me write on the whiteboard, chalkboard, old school. Equation Editor is something that's going to be useful for all of us that have equations within our materials because it's coming, right? And if we're trying to bend and not break and meet the students where they are, we need to be able to put our materials in a format that's accessible to them on Blackboard. Wow, still nice for them to view and in the correct format. So on a scale of 1 to 5, and y'all throw this in the chat, how comfortable are you with writing equations in electronic form? 1 being it's a foreign language that I never learned. 5 being I'm an expert, I'm a pro, let's roll. Okay, we got lots of 3s. Oh, Elaine, look at you, got 4. Dr. Kempen, that's okay, you're in the right place. I love it. 3s, 4s, perfect. So when I give a 1 to 5 for my students, I say, hey, right now as we're just learning, if we're a 1, 2, maybe even a 3, that's okay, we're the learning process. If we're a 4 or 5, shoot, yeah, let's just roll. And so some of what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you from the very beginning and show you the shortcuts, but also if you're just starting out, how this could be incorporated even before you're ready for shortcuts. So we're going to go through the full gamut. And as you're typing in the chat there, go ahead and also answer this last question for me. How many of you are familiar specifically with the Microsoft Office equation editor? So for instance, Word, PowerPoint, in those. So, again, 1 to 5. 1, it's a foreign language. 5, I've got it ready to roll specifically for Microsoft Office. Okay, I think a lot of us are in about the same spot. So equation editor is probably most familiar to us in the Word document. Some of us have probably incorporated it a little bit into our LMS system and our Blackboards. But let me just give you some examples here. So here in a minute, you're about to see some equations just pop up on the screen. So this right here is an equation box, is what I will call it. And we can start, maybe I say, 12 feet exponent squared. Notice that when I first typed that, I used the caret key and the 2. Without the equation editor, that's the best that we could do. And while it works, it's not in the best visual format for us or for our students. So using that equation editor, when I hit the space bar, it automatically knows that that 2 should have been in the exponent position. If I wanted to do, so here's for my chemistry instructors, maybe I wanted a subscript instead. I needed a C3, H8. Whoops, I should have hit my space bar. Sorry, guys. There you go. Using that simple shortcut key, Let me show you that again, h underscore 8. To make it in a more visual appealing format, I hit that space bar and that equation editor knows to put that in the subscript position. You know, for us at in the math world, we deal with our functions. I can throw a quadratic function in there pretty quickly. And notice, if you're familiar with equation editor, you're used to seeing an equation bar pop up here at the big top of the screen with the built-in commands. I'm doing all of this with shortcut keys. So let me show you all of this. Y'all ready? Boom. Okay, anybody else get excited about that? I'm a little bit of a math nerd, right? We all know that. The fact that I could write that out all in one line, shortcuts, needing no extra prompts, but yet when I hit the space bar, that showed so visually as I intended it to, is a huge step up for us as instructors. I was able to type that in without having to go search for an extra place in the equation editor, extra components. Let me show y'all one more, and then I'm gonna put myself out there a little bit and see if y'all want to give me some equations to add in as the equation editor. So we all know fractions, right? I have a numerator, I have a denominator. In the equation editor, if I wanted a full function, top and bottom, watch what happens when I put it in parentheses. So all of it's in singular type, but because I'm currently in the equation editor using those parentheses, when I hit the space bar, look at how much nicer that is, guys. So using the equation editor, before y'all fuss at me, math people, there we go. Now I'm technically mathematically sound. Using the equation editor is going to enhance the visual equations while I'm in a technology-based environment. But if you were doing all of this by hand, trying to use the equation editor commands, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute, it's just a slow and tedious process. So before we move on and I show you what we have prepared for you in terms of some takeaways, I'm going to be brave for a minute. Feed me some equations that you want to see the shortcut for.
Jennifer,
So either in the chat or unmute. Yes.
can you do one? Yes, Eleni, there is. Can you do an equation where you use multiple brackets and fractional exponents like a compound interest formula?
Yes.
Even if it's not correct?
Yes. So let me grab to Eleni real quick. So Eleni, you were asking about the shortcut for a radical. If I just want the square root, SQRT, but notice I started it with the backslash. When I hit space, it gives me that radical and I can start typing. When I hit the space again, it's going to bring that radical sign across the top. One of the things I just recently learned though, if you want something other than square root, start with square root, parentheses. Let's say I want the 10th root and x, boom. So there's a shortcut for almost everything. And like most things, it's going to take practice to learn these shortcuts. But I do have a deliverable where you can print off, you can hang it up on your computer or wherever you see it often as you're learning this. So Doc, you asked me for like a finance formula, correct?
I'll find you a formula. Go on with another person and I'll get you a formula.
No, you want a finance, you want a finance formula, right?
Yes, I'll find you a formula.
I don't need it. It's okay. I teach that class enough. So let's talk finance formula real quick, specifically for loans, PMT. Now, this is a really, really long formula. So what I might do is I might set up my fraction line first. Divide sign, hit the space, and the equation editor is going to give me a numerator and a denominator. In the numerator, I might start saying, well, PMT equals A parentheses R divided by N close parentheses space. divided by, and I move down into the division sign, open parentheses, 1 minus, open parentheses, 1 plus, r over n, close parentheses, exponent negative n times, ooh, notice that. If I want the fancy multiplication button, I backslash times, when I hit space, it gives me multiplication. T, close parentheses, space, close parentheses, space. So I'm going through this fairly quickly because I really just want to right now introduce you to some of the things that are possible within the equation editor. Does anybody have something else that they would like to see before I provide you that shortcut? Yes, there is, Julie. It's actually one of the things I'm about to show you. So in order to access the equation editor quickly, I am hitting Alt, the Alt button, and the plus equal key. When I do that at the same time, it pops up the equation editor. So I'm going to show you that here in a moment within a Word document so that you can see a little bit cleaner than on a presentation. But before we get there, let me just check the chat one more time. Is there anything else y'all want to see right now before I take you over to your shortcuts page? Shortcut for Greek letters. Absolutely. Will this apply for Mac computers? Ooh, Angie. Angie,
Can
do you
I
have
answer?
Word on a Mac? Yes, Doc, please answer that.
Anything that works on a PC should work on a Mac, and I will pull mine out while we're presenting here and simultaneously type what Jennifer's typing to verify that.
So, Eleni, as I'm going, I'm kind of just typing these out. So if you want a particular Greek letter like alpha, it's \alpha spacebar. And I have included that within some of our shortcuts. So great questions, guys. Such great questions. What I'm going to do now is over in the chat, I am going to, well, if I can get it to let me, I need to attach a file. Why am I not seeing that option, Brian?
Hold on one second, Jennifer. Let me dig into it. I'll get it up. I'll get that up here. Give me a sec. I might have to do some maneuvering.
Okay.
Let me do some maneuvering real quick. I'll get this up here. Give me 2 seconds. Okay,
Yep.
maybe not
Alright,
2
guys.
seconds, but you know what I mean.
I'm going to take you over here real quick to our desktop, and we're going to go, I'm going to show you the shortcut key. This shortcut document will be dropped into the chat shortly, but this is something that we've created that you can print off and use as you need it. It talks about the equation editor in Word in general. When you open it, it pops up this toolbar where you can go through and request the commands from this toolbar. So if I wanted a fraction, let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all. If I wanted a fraction, I could go get a fraction using this equation toolbar. Or, better yet, here's some of the shortcuts. So if I wanted a less than, equal to, greater than, equal to type inequality, I can simply type a greater than sign and the equal, and it will automatically create, let me show you, x greater than equal 3. So this will be given to you within the chat momentarily. There's shortcuts for does not equal. It's a \NE. The different operation signs, the Greek letters. If you want a capital Greek,
to show you how to use the equation editor on your MacBook.
Sorry.
A ton of time.
I see how it is, Doc. I'm just kidding. So, Eleni, you talked about the Greek letters. If you want to use a capital Greek, you can just capitalize the word alpha or capitalize the word beta. Yeah, Eleni's talking about if you want the not equals, you can use /equal and it will give you the not equal sign. So depending on what you need for your specific class, Chemistry. If you need the arrows, right? If you need the equilibrium signs, thank you, that's what I was looking for. All of that's available to you within a shortcut. And the more efficient we get, thank you, Brian, that shortcut key, that shortcut document is now in your chat. You're welcome to pull that up and download it to your computer. If there are some shortcuts that you would like to know what they are, but you don't see them, just ask, and I can always add it or talk or explain through how to do that operation. So I've talked a lot. Let me turn it back to y'all for a minute. Is there anything on here that stands out to you that you just get excited to know there's a shortcut for? So, Sina, I'm so glad. One of the ones I was most excited to find was the, they call it a \circle, but we use it for composites and math, as well as the prescript. To be able to put a subscript or a superscript in front of something, I was pretty excited about that.
I was too.
Yeah, especially for you chemistry people, right? Okay. So Brian, would you drop in the chat for me the second document, which is
Sure
about practicing. Whew, guys, my words aren't working right now.
I'm doing that right now, team. Make sure you download this one. I have it set up so it's can view, not edit. That way, not everybody clicks on it and they're like, I'm just gonna edit on it, and then everybody sees what's going on, kind of thing.
So what he's putting in the chat for us right now is this one. It says, let's practice. Yours might not have the equation editor part up here, but I wanted to make sure I can show you visually. What about multiplication dot? I will check on that, Julie. I personally don't like to use the multiplication dot just because there's so many dots in math. I've gotten to where I use the time sign instead. So that would be the \times.
Jennifer, the multiplication dot is a character that you can set in your frequently used characters menu.
Yes. And when she's referring to the frequently used, it's things up here that pop up. So if you see my cursor where it says symbols, you see some of the common ones like plus or minus, infinity, the square, the cube root or the fourth root, the unions. She's saying that you can set that as a common one up here. Now, Julie, if you like this particular multiplication symbol, this is just the, what's it called? It's right above the number 8 on your keyboard. Whatever its technical term is. But with that, guys, anything that works on your keyboard will work in the equation editor. So if we need like absolute value of x.
Right? Asterisk, I guess you meant.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So anything that's on your keyboard, like the plus, the division sign, your brackets, will still work within the equation editor. So. All right, guys. So with that let's practice document that Brian has dropped in the chat, please download that into your computer so that we each have our own copy. And I'd like you to practice. See if you can there's a desired equation in the left column. Use the blank space in the right column, see if you can get the same desired equation. To get the equation editor most quickly, you're going to hit Alt+. If you are just starting out, rather than using the shortcuts, you can explore this equation toolbar at the top, where it has script writing, superscripts, subscripts, both front and back. It has fractions and many more things. So I'm going to give y'all a minute just to kind of practice. If you have questions or you're struggling to type something out, let me know. Let us know. Yeah, I agree with Lori. Let's practice. Don't get discouraged. Ask questions if you run into a roadblock. In the math world, I really like this fourth one where it has negative infinity to positive infinity. To get that infinity, I can go backslash INFTY space, and it's going to give me that infinity sign.
Julie just put a cool discovery in the chat.
Oh, called the bullet. So rather than the multiplication sign, if you want the dot, backslash bullet.
Nice.
I also love what Julie pointed out. If there's something like that that you use a lot, you can often, not always, but often in this equation toolbar, you can hover over the symbol, and you'll notice on this particular one I'm showing on the screen, it shows you that the shortcut is backslash NI. Or like for degree, it says it's backslash degree. So in parentheses, it's telling you what the shortcut would be for those commonly used operations or symbols. Science, I have some for you down here at the kind of the bottom of our Let's Practice. We've got some unit conversions going on, balancing some scientific equation, chemistry, how would you call that? It's not a scientific equation.
Chemical
Balancing
equation. Chemical reaction.
Thank you, chemical reaction. There we go. So guys, talk to me. How's the practicing going? Are we practicing? Are we running into roadblocks? Do we have it mastered? Give me that 1 to 5. 1, I'm still completely lost. 5, I've got this. Let's roll. Are we starting to feel any better? We're finding this helpful. Awesome, Eleni. Good, Tom. Glad you got one to work. Perfect. Thanks, Eleni. Good. So guys, my ultimate goal for us, if we started out at a 2, my hope is that we get to at least a 3, maybe even a 4. You know, if we started out at 4, hopefully we ran up to 5. Oh, Tom, the third one. So let's do that one together. This is a set notation. In order to open my equation editor, I'm going to hit Alt plus. And luckily, this little symbol, the set symbol, is part of my keyboard. So Shift bracket, I just took it off of my keyboard. X. And then Shift backslash will give me the straight line. I can then go X greater than, and when I hit the equal, it's going to put it underneath as a greater than equal to an equality. 0, comma, X, backslash NE for not equal, 3, and close my bracket. So part of it's going to be exploring your keyboard and finding those keys that are most useful for you, like our inequality symbols, backslashes, and things like that. Tom, so when it does that, one, I'm going to ask you if your equation editor is updated, if your Word document's updated. But what I have found is sometimes I just need to type it in again. So I'll back up and then there you go. See if it did it like that. Try hitting the space bar. If it does not fix, then back up and type it in one more time. All right, guys, I've used up a fair amount of our time, and I know we still have some awesome things to learn from Brian. So keep this, practice this. Let me go ahead and reshare our PowerPoint real quick. Here we are. So we've already walked through this process, but that shortcut file is available to you. You are welcome to save it, print it. If you need some extra ones on there, let me know and I will help locate them. But I would also like to know, what do you think? What did you find to be the biggest struggle? Will this be helpful to you? Give me just a little bit of feedback before I hand it over to Brian.
And folks, I've only been playing with this for about 2.5 weeks. Jennifer and Lori came up to me to ask about seeing what kind of things chemistry would need on this side. So I actually have not been doing this very much. And so it's been really neat kind of playing around with it. And it's given me some good ideas this semester as far as getting my problem keys done. Because all my problem keys are my handwritten work. And I've got them scanned online. And the accessibility arrow is screaming at me saying, bad, bad, bad.
Mhm.
And so this is the one thing that I really need to get fixed as far as accessibility goes, is getting my shortcuts in there and getting my accessibility for my equations done. So I'm really excited about that. That's kind of my pet project. And again, it's going to be a really useful tool for, I think, a lot of people, helping, a lot of our math and a lot of our physics, chemistry, engineering, some of our different other technical programs that utilize a lot of calculation type things. It'll help us out tremendously. So
I'm
thank you,
glad Brian
Jennifer.
brings that up because this is accessible. Depending, like your blind students, some of their like braille readers, not braille readers, some of their readers can still read the equation editor. The Blackboard Ally loves you. You turn green. So guys, with that, I'm not going to take any more time, but just realize that you can contact me after the fact if you need any more help, want to play with some more equation editor in Microsoft Office. So,
Awesome.
next up,
I guess
Brian, I'm
up.
going to unshare and give it to you. Is that okay?
Cool beans. I'm going to go ahead and put another item that Jennifer has shared with me. So you can also take this equation editing information into Blackboard as well. So Jennifer has a really cool document that she's prepared with Blackboard keys for math answers for your students. So I don't know about you guys, but one of the challenges we come up with in math fields, chemistry fields, physics fields, or any fields where you need a work problem shown is, how do I get students to submit that work? I've come up with a solution where I have my students work their problems on paper and then they submit in a separate assignment, and then I have to grade two things at once. But Jennifer showed me some tricks here with these Blackboard keys for our math answers that can be very helpful for us moving forward. So the first thing I'm going to do is let me share that document that Jennifer's prepared, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that up on my screen real fast. So I guess here we go again. Brian's back on the screen share. So talking about that first, this is the Blackboard keys for math and ways you can enter these keys in. Now, to do so for these keys, the important thing we're going to look at is when you guys are in your little editor for an essay, short answer type question, or open-ended type question, you're going to hit this little radical button. It's kind of between the ABC check and the little paragraph align. And once you hit that button, it's going to open up your math options. Now, unlike what Jennifer's put together with our typing for the Word documents, you will have to use the individual buttons to get your answers put in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys through Blackboard to kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to be in one of my master classes. I'm going to be in my Gen Chem 1 hybrid/online master class. And I'll show you guys how that editor would work when you're trying to edit problems themselves. So
guys,
what I'm going
this
to
is
do
for your students too. Like your students have access to this.
Yeah, and this is good for you if you guys want to have students, that are taking an online exam. For those of you guys, especially since we're looking at 8-week classes in the future, if we're moving to hybrids, we'll have, options to move, exams online, so you can take back your time for lecture materials, for problem-solving support, and you can move those assessments online and have your, students showing that work online kind of thing. So I'm in my Blackboard class. I'm going to go jump into one of my lecture exams, actually, just pick one of them real quick just so I get a problem kind of thing. One thing I want to show you guys that happens with it, I'm going to edit actually I'm going to go into the test itself. Since this is my master class, it's not set up with honor lock. It's just ready to jump right in. So I have my multiple choice questions set up, and then I have questions that are calculated formula type questions. Let me see if I can find one that's like that. So for those of you guys who do use the calculated formula option, you do not have the ability to go and have your students show that work. So for those type of problems that are calculated formulas that allow you to have an algorithm, this method will not work, unfortunately, for that. However, there is good benefit to those algorithm problems, and I would recommend, if you do still like having that paperwork being shown and having that take place, these algorithm calculated formula problems are really good. And what I can do is after I get through this part, I can show you guys how to make a calculated formula problem and what you would do exactly. But where the equation editor can be helpful here in Blackboard is we're going to hit this little radical button to enter a math equation, and it's going to pop the math type below. So for instance, let's say I want to enter something in, like for instance, I want to do a fraction problem. So let's say, for instance, I want to start off with say 118.7, and we're going to go ahead and use that problem we did earlier. So we're going to use our meters squared. Well, I can't do meters squared like that. Instead, I have to hit the button here to get the meters to the second power like so. I'm going to hit the times button to get the multiplication. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my little adjustment here. So I've got my parentheses 1 meter. And then I'm going to hit my little, let's see, I'll hit this little button here, squared, put that back here. And then I've got my, say, 100 centimeters. And then don't want to give my parentheses. And then hit my little square button, boom. And then I can hit my little equal sign, and that will solve my problem for me. Now, if I want to show this as the work in the problem, I hit OK, and it's going to go ahead and put that problem in there OK, just like so. So my problem is now entered into my answer thing. So this is what my students would enter in if they're trying to work a problem on the exam kind of thing. Likewise, if I want to do a second type of item, like for chemistry people, I know we're big fans of, writing balanced equations. So for instance, if I want to do something like, say, Na3 parentheses, so Na3, oh, you can't do Na3 like that. We have to hit the little subscript button, then hit space, and we got to hit the subscript. We got to hit, let's see, then you click back, PO, parentheses 4, then hit tab over, then plus, then CACL underscore 2. Where are my manners? I'm forgetting my solubility rules. Boom. So whenever you're done with the subscript, I have to hit the right arrow to move over. So that means me another one here. For my arrow, I can use little arrow buttons over here. I just need a simple, plain, boring garden variety arrow. Go back to my little math portion. Then I've got NaCl. And I've got my calcium phosphate. Boom. So the students have the ability to enter these things in. And so if I want to go back and balance, I can add my coefficients. Like so. Ta-da. Space bar. Oh, wait, whoops. Space that out. Oh, that did not work. No, I gotta hit that. Don't hit space. You gotta hit the arrow over. Kind of thing. And so it'll enter in the equation and it'll put it below kind of thing like that. And that's a little bit easier. Oh, man, my 2's a little small. If you need to edit, you just click back on the equation. You go back and edit. So if I got to go back and fix my 2 because he got a little tiny there, we can do that. Put our 2 in and boom. So that's a nice useful tool. So if we want our students to enter their work in, it gives us an alternative for having our students enter their work in as well. I did tell you guys I wanted to explain how calculated formula works. So let me go back to my exams. I don't need to be here. And so if you're looking to create a calculated formula type problem, this is one that's kind of popular. If I go to course tools, we'll go to test surveys and pools. So let's say I go to my pool question area. I'm going to build a pool. I'm going to call this a conversion. Sample conversion. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to create question in Blackboard and go to calculated formula. So let's say I want to do a unit conversion, and let's say I want to convert, let's say 525 feet to meters. Well, that's great. I can convert 525 feet to meters. So I would do this as such. I would take my 525. Then I know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, right? So I would go times 12 times 2.54 because 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. And then I know 100 centimeters is a meter. But what if I don't want 525 to be the only number I'm using? Well, let's use a variable. And so I'm going to put in brackets around the letter X, my variable. So I'm going to come over here and put an X here to be my variable for this problem. So now I can change the parameters of what X is, and I can manipulate it to be something that's either a really small number to a really large number. So students will have the same problem, but they'll have different numbers. That way a student's not going to copy the same answer. I can use either, it can be within two numbers or it can be within 2%. I like using 2%. You can allow partial credit if you want. As far as partial credit goes, you can give a certain range for it. I typically don't use partial credit. Or you can require units. And so in my case, because we're converting feet to meters, I want my final unit to be an M. And let's say my units make up, say, 10% of the answer. Let's say my units are 10% of the answer. Okay, so we've got the units plugged in. I'm going to hit next. And now I can manipulate what X is. So I can say X could be anything from, let's say, 10.001 all the way to 19.999. So I've got 3 decimal places, but more specifically, I have 5 significant figures. And so the way we do dimension analysis, I base my sig figs of my final answer on how many sig figs are in my starting calculation. So I would have 5 sig figs in my final answer, and I can choose anywhere from 1 number set, 10 number sets. I'll do 200, for instance. And we'll have the format just as a normal format and hit calculate. So at this portion, what it's going to do is we're going to have a series of random numbers that are here between 10.001 and 19.999. And my final answer will be calculated out with 5 sig figs to get me my meters. So now I have a question that's ready. Everybody cool? Pretty nifty way of doing it. And so it's algorithm to calculate that problem for me. So I have a way of kind of changing the numbers up if I'm doing an exam. Just another protection for us as far as, you know, assessments and looking at those kind of things. All right. And then of course it takes a minute or two for it to load. So don't be disturbed if it takes a little bit of time, because remember, there are 200 questions that are going to be in here. And I have this example problem here in my pool. So I wanted to get creative with my test pool. I could also create another calculated formula problem that does the exact same thing, but instead of calculating feet to meters, I can go calculate, say, meters to feet. So I go the other direction now. So I have the ability to kind of go forward or backwards. I can go feet to meters or meters to feet, and students would have the same testing process where they're having to do the conversions from one unit to another kind of thing. All right. So what's everybody think? Pretty nifty, pretty different.
One thing that I threw in the chat just for y'all to be aware, these are 2 separate things. The math type that Brian originally showed you is fantastic, but it's only going to be available in that essay type Blackboard question that we create. If you use the calculated formula, which how awesome is that it will populate new numbers for you. Every student gets their own test. That student response is only going to be a fill in the blank. It won't have the math type in a calculated formula Blackboard question.
Mm-hmm. So you do have to go back and regrade that one manually, which is what I'm actually going to be in the process of doing after this conference is over. I have to go and grade some Chem 1411 exams because my students finished at noon today. And I'm going to go back and grade those exams. I'll have their work submission on my second screen and their exam on my first screen. And I'll be able to kind of go back and grade those assignments as I'm going, kind of thing. It's pretty exciting. All right. So I guess that kind of ends my part. So Jennifer, you want to go ahead and pull that PowerPoint back up one more time? And I think Lori's going to take us home.
Yeah, I sure can. Let me get us to the right place. And give me just one moment. Here we go.
Okay.
Whoops. Sorry, Brian. There you
No,
go.
you're
Here
good.
we go. I want to thank y'all first for attending and spending part of your afternoon with us. Jennifer, can you hit the next slide, please?
I sure can.
Thank you. In the chat, you should have received several things that you can download and print. Be sure to do that before you leave. For those of you who found this helpful, I've gotten some messages on the other side of this presentation while it was going on, asking me to schedule it again out there in the future, probably on a Friday morning to repeat. So if I can get Jennifer and Brian to agree to that, we will definitely do that, and hopefully have a wider audience. In that, when you see that announcement come out over your email, feel free to forward us anything that you have discovered as you were playing with your new toy, and we can share our learning together. I love how I believe it was Angie said that she feels like she's found a new toy that she's going to play with this. And so I'm glad that you guys have seen some something that you can use, something productive come out of your time investment with us here. Does anyone have any questions before we leave? See some typing going on.
And again, these are the official questions for the record, because I also will turn off the recording and we can do the unofficial, not recorded questions as well.
Also, if you have anything that you're having trouble finding a shortcut for, let us know and we'll see if we can see if we can find them and present them in our next little session. Yes, Cecina, I love Desmos too. It's one of my favorite toys. Brian, you want to make us unofficial now?
I sure am. So for those of y'all viewing the recording, thank you for coming to the recording. And for those of y'all here, thank you very much.